welcome everyone to today's webcast, Powerful Cloud Pairings with Anaplan and Microsoft Azure. My name is Austin Fiero, and I'm joined by my colleague Scott. Scott and I are both business intelligence and analytics consultants here at Thorogood, and we've drawn on our Anaplan experience and expertise to bring you today's presentation. You can also feel free to get in touch with us via our contact details on the screen if you wish to have a longer discussion about today's topic. We will also share our contact details again at the end of today's presentation. For those of you who don't know about Thorogood, we're an independent global professional services firm specializing in business intelligence and analytics strategies, solutions, and services with a keen focus on our customers. We are a global company with offices in New York, Philadelphia, London, Bangalore, India, Singapore, and Sao Paulo, Brazil. All of our consultants are recruited and trained in the same way to develop a unique mix of skills, blending business understanding in the form of industry and functional experience with strong technical aptitude and a deep understanding of analytical tools and techniques. We offer a full range of BI and analytics services, including strategy and roadmaps, requirements, design, implementation, and training and support. Our clients typically span 4 data-rich verticals: consumer goods, pharmaceutical and health services, banking, and insurance. Our clients are some of the leading organizations in these sectors, and we take a lot of pride in our long-standing relationships we have fostered with some of the names that you see here. In terms of technologies that we work with, we are an independent consulting firm, meaning we don't specialize in one technology. We do, however, work and partner with many of the key players in the market in order to provide our clients with a solution that best suits their needs. So with the topic of today's webcast focusing partly on Microsoft, I wanted to spend a minute or two talking about our relationship with Microsoft. We have been a Microsoft Gold Partner for over 15 years and are certified in data analytics, platform and collaboration and content. In addition, we are also a cloud platform certified partner. Our partnership gives us a great interface into Microsoft's development team, allowing for open communication both from Microsoft directly to our customers and feedback from our customers back to the developers. So if you're interested in working with us on any innovative programs listed on the screen or interested in progressing a Microsoft initiative, please reach out and let us know. So today's business case comes from an all too well-known problem across industries and functions. So you have a process or a group of processes which rely primarily or even solely on the use of Excel spreadsheets. These spreadsheets exist on local machines, they lack version control, unified formats, and more, causing inefficiencies in your process when time is money, and inaccurate data being broadcasted or even reported on. So in a perfect world, the intention is to get rid of the arduous manual effort of spreadsheet maintenance and put everything, whether that's data input, data output, or reporting, on a single interface, accessible anywhere, such as your laptop, your phone, or your tablet. So does this situation sound familiar? We've heard these pain points time and time again, and today's webcast covers a potential solution to this issue. We'll focus on a specific problem one of our customers had around expense planning. The expense planning solution utilizes a powerful combination of both Anaplan and Microsoft technologies. But what makes these two a powerful pair? First, we will start with Anaplan, which provides users one version of the truth, a front-end interface for data consolidation, manual overrides, and approvals without having to use spreadsheets on your local computer. Next, we'll take a look at Microsoft's Azure toolkit, including the ever-popular Power BI, providing robust data integration and analytics across your organization. And the combination of these two will cover the spectrum of your business needs, including data collection, data attribution, and visually stunning reporting available on all your devices. So for today's expense planning use case, we will show how Anaplan is used to coordinate the submission, overrides, and approval of expenses. We'll move on to the back end, where many tools in the Microsoft stack, like Azure SQL Database and many others, can bring your updated and approved expenses from the Anaplan interface, historical figures, and transform for key KPI calculations. Finally, Microsoft's Power BI will be used as the ultimate reporting tool, taking data across the platforms and providing beautiful visualizations, all accessible on the go. So first, let's start with Anaplan. For those unfamiliar with the product, Anaplan is a cloud-based tool whose names combine the word analysis and planning. Its goal is to enable collaborative planning, ultimately improving your operational performance. Its core idea is to provide a single hub for business users to manage data models without using code or relying on IT personnel. Once data is within the Anaplan cloud, business users can analyze disparate data sets that can range across functional areas like finance, sales, and other parts of the company. Anaplan provides users a familiar Excel-style functionality, enabling empowerment of data-driven decisions without requiring a data science background or skill set. So in our expense planning use case, I will show how the web-based platform of Anaplan provides that one version of the truth for your end users, eliminating local spreadsheets. Its interface allows for real-time collaboration and is in a familiar Excel-like format. Anaplan allows for an interactive and intuitive cross-filtering across objects on a dashboard, helpful when drilling through to individual expense categories for a given individual. Finally, I will demonstrate the approval workflow aspect of expense planning, viewing the status of individual expense entries, overriding expense budgets, and approving expenses. So now, let me bring up our Anaplan model. So what we have here is our expense planning demo, which is one of my favorites that I defaulted to when signing on to Anaplan. As you can see here, I'm showing the accounts workflow. So I'm coming in, and right now I'm viewing my planners and what they have for expenses under them. So for instance, Best Madison has payroll, agency expenses, and building and maintenance. But I also have insight into other planners as well, such as Jacob, Jeff, and Kelly. You can see here what is complete, what is in progress, and what has not been started yet. So for instance, Bess has completed her payroll. She is currently working on agency expenses, but she has not started building maintenance. So let's dive a little bit deeper into what these dashboards look like. Over here on the left-hand side, you will see the dashboard sections. So I can click on Plan Entry. And right now I'm viewing the Expense Planning Planner View dashboard. You can see here for the planner and account, I'm viewing Best Madison, but I do have the option to choose other individuals as well. So for the purposes of this demo, we can say that I'm acting as Bess, and I'm coming into my Plan Entry view, and I can see that I have already completed my payroll. It's been approved, which is good. And yesterday, my agency expenses, I submitted for approval on 9/12, and that's currently pending approval. So I'm going to need my boss to approve that so that it can go through. You do have the ability in Anaplan to filter or cross-filter on different tabs. So by selecting building maintenance, you can see here the monthly plan view filters onto building maintenance. Another functionality in Anaplan is the blue text, which means that I have the ability to essentially write to that cell, and that will change values. So for the purposes of this demo, if I hover over agency expenses, you can see that I've submitted this yesterday. I've clicked the Submit for Approval. That sends out a notification when on the approval view. It'll be able to see that someone, such as my boss, can now approve that, and then it can go to the status of approved, and then on the account workflow, that will have a status of complete. Now, if I go to building maintenance, for the example of this demo, let's say that I recently received news that for the month of November, I actually have an extra $14,000 or so budget that's been added, and we can say that this is for an upgrade for a lobby or conference room lighting. So if I add my override value, I know that I have an additional, we can say 14,000 here, bringing me to 140,000. I can write that in, and I can just give an override comment so that not only myself, but other individuals looking at this know what the additional monetary value is for. So I can just say upgrades to conference room lighting. Okay, and then override year-over-year change indicator. So essentially by clicking this, you will now see that the value above has been increased, as is this value here. So this just signifies that, yes, I want to override this value. By deselecting it, it will not be reflected in my submitted plan amount. So the next thing I want to do, once I think that everything is okay and I want to submit this for approval, I can just come up here, click Submit for Approval, and I can give it a date. So if I go to 2018, considering today is September 13th. Okay. So now that's it as Best Madison. The next view in our demo we have is the approval view. So for the purposes of this, we can say that both Bess, Jeff, Jacob, and Kelly are, I'm their boss. So what I want to do is make sure that what they're submitting for their expenses, I actually approve. It's been looked at, it's been sort of sorted through to make sure that, nothing's inflated. So you can see here for payroll, I've already approved that. That's been submitted. Bess has also submitted the agency expenses, which we saw. And I'm going to go ahead and look at that. So I can just click on that, and you can see the bottom graph filters on that. Everything looks okay here. There's no changes. Everything makes sense. So I can approve that as well. And then the last thing here is the building maintenance. So clearly I can see here a change in 13,000, or about that 14,000 that Bess was mentioning. And I can see here the comment she mentioned, so upgrades for conference room lighting. But we can say that, I just had discussions with some of the building crew, and they can actually get this work done for $10,000 rather than $14,000. So I think that extra $13,968 is a little bit inflated. So I can go in as the approver and change that to $136,000 as opposed to $140,000. I can override the approval, and then I can just give an additional comment as to why this is, so that Bess also has insight into why I'm changing this. So again, we don't have to go back and forth via email. I can just comment directly here and give a reason. So spoke with contractor and can finish job for $10K. So with that, I can then approve this. And then you can see here that it has a status approved with adjustment. Because I am the approver and I have adjusted it, you can see that line here, but the other ones that I have approved already had no adjustments by me, so that Bess knows nothing has changed from what she has submitted. And now the last view here, so if I go to the executive guidance input, this just gives an overall view of all the expenses that I've budgeted for. So individuals can come in and they can see what the recommended year-over-year change is and how they're faring against that. So for instance here, agency expenses is at 5%, and we can see how, as the year progresses, am I in line with that 5%, am I over and under, and it gives that sort of executive overview of all the expenses that have been planned for. So that is the Anaplan demo. I'm going to jump back to the slides now. So I will now hand it off to Scott, and Scott's going to talk about Azure and Power BI and how that fits well with Anaplan.
First, if we're going to talk about Azure and Power BI, it's probably good to get started with a quick overview of the Azure platform. So what's available on the screen is certainly not an exhaustive list. We simply decided to call out a couple of different technologies within each of the 4 verticals that we have on the screen. So information management, data storage, ML and analytics, and then dashboarding and visualizations. And we've actually run a webcast on navigating the Azure platform that covers the full range of Azure tools in a bit more detail if you're interested to learn more. So that's available on the perspectives page on our website. But here we're calling out some tools like Data Factory for orchestrating data movement, both within and outside of Azure. SQL database, which will feel a lot like SQL Server, as well as Azure SQL Data Warehousing, Azure ML for machine learning and analytics, and Power BI for data visualization. And we'll continue with Austin's demo, moving into Power BI in just a few minutes. So now that we have a high-level understanding, or at least familiarity with the Azure platform, what exactly can it offer us in this use case? Well, we're able to bring in data from a multitude of sources via out-of-the-box connectors. It also offers us a lot of flexibility in terms of additional attribution or additional transformations beyond what we've done within Anaplan or what's needed within Anaplan itself. Then lastly, one of the probably most compelling drivers for using Azure is data storage. So relatively speaking, storage within Anaplan can tend toward the expensive side, whereas Azure can provide lower cost storage, especially if we consider a tiered approach for storage, where we have premium storage, hot storage, cool storage, and even archive tiers, depending on how frequently we need to access certain data points, how quickly we need to access it, that sort of thing. So maybe for some of our more recent data, we're going to be hitting that pretty often. and we need a lot of responsiveness in that data. So, we might have that on a hotter tier and have some of the kind of old historical data that's not going to change much on a cooler tier. So along the same lines, this storage can also be quickly scaled as our data grows. So in other words, we can let Anaplan really focus on doing what it does best with maintaining the complex relationships for our active data that's currently flowing through the business processes in Anaplan, whereas using Azure for storage of the active data alongside all that historical data for some more robust reporting. So here's a pretty quick view of what Azure could look like within this use case. So over here we have Anaplan, which is, as I said, managing all that active planning data and even creating new data, as Austin just showed. We can use a tool like Azure Data Factory, possibly alongside Databricks, depending on complexity of transformations that are needed along the way. We can use this to orchestrate extracts from Anaplan, bring it to storage in an Azure blob, and then we'll regularly update an Azure SQL DW to manage all that data alongside our historical data. We may even want to use something like Azure Analysis Services, which is the Azure equivalent of SSAS, to create a data model that supports that Power BI reporting. So now that we know how we're going to manage all of this data, let's look at reporting on the planning data within Power BI. So, just as we did with Azure, let's take a quick overview of Power BI. It focuses on drag and drop visualizations, and there's kind of two parts to the offering. There's the on-premise, or in some cases even on your desktop aspect, as well as the aspect within Microsoft Clouds, the online portion of it. So Power BI Desktop is used to connect the data initially, work on some of the ETL processes if you're going to be making some transformations or building the data model within Power BI, and then also creating those valuable reports for the business. This is also now integrated with Report Server, meaning that new Power BI applications that you're creating can sit alongside your legacy reports or some of your more static SSRS reports within one interface. And then we also have the cloud aspect of Power BI, which includes app.powerbi.com, which you're probably pretty familiar with. And this is the online service that enables sharing of the reports created in Power BI Desktop throughout your entire organization. It also allows scheduling regular data refreshes, that sort of thing. This also allows bringing applications streamlined for mobile use directly to your phone and tablet. So, for this use case, what value is Power BI bringing? Well, it can bring us a number of benefits. A number of the advanced visualization options for driving more in-depth analysis are available within Power BI beyond that which is already set up in Anaplan. And also, since we're benefiting from the efficient storage in Azure, as we had just talked about, this allows us to resurface all this active data alongside the historical data to the business. And even in terms of getting more efficiency, this allows some splitting of license needs between people such as the planners or the approvers, the roles that Austin was just playing, who need to be actively changing and managing that data in Anaplan. Whereas, other areas of the business that are interested solely in seeing the data can kind of skip those Anaplan licenses entirely by focusing on reporting that's built in Power BI. Then lastly, this is pretty valuable for quickly creating and sharing the reports in a central location. So especially if your organization is using or is getting started in using Power BI and is using app.powerbi.com or something like that as a central reporting location. This can kind of bring all of your related reports together, as well as potentially focusing on mobile integration. So now I'll bring up a Power BI workbook, which is connected to that same data that Austin was showing before. All right, so that should be available on the screen now. So here I'm showing Power BI Desktop, which has a data model that's supported by the storage in Azure of our active 2018 data that's currently in Anaplan, as well as some data from previous years. So the first view that we're looking at here is focused on that data that we were just working with in Anaplan, showing the expense lines managed by each planner over on the left-hand side here. We can see across the top the status of each of those expense lines kind of bucketed into those statuses. in this waterfall chart here. And we can also see some high-level KPIs to represent where we are kind of at a high level in that planning process. So, percentage that have been submitted for approval, percentage that have fully completed the approval process, that sort of thing. So looking at the waterfall chart here, we can select awaiting planner submission, and then in the table at the bottom, we can see all of these expense lines that are in flight still with the planner. So the plans that are included here are, the plans that they're currently working on and working with. And we can also go over to approved with adjustment if we want to see the building maintenance line that Austin was just working on. Or Best Madison, I should say, was just working on. So we can see that it was approved with an adjustment. We can see the initial amount that was submitted here. And then we can also see the approved amount, which, based on that conversation of the change in budget, so the change in expected cost of that project, we can see the decrease from around 14K or so to 10K of override there, as well as the fact that it was submitted for approval today, which would be September 13th if you're thinking about planning for that final quarter of the year. So all this data on the screen is pretty familiar based on what we saw in Anaplan. It's just, kind of upgraded with the user-friendly Power BI formatting here. But if I go to this next tab, we can see kind of that other benefit to using Azure and Power BI with Anaplan, which is the context of all of this historical data. So this is made possible through all that Azure storage. On the left-hand side, as Austin mentioned before, we have the recommended year-over-year change in terms of percentages for each individual expense line. So if we wanted, we could go and select a specific expense line and kind of see how things have been trending over time. We also have those trends versus the prior year up along the top, and then have some data of trend versus prior year split out by those expense lines in these bars across the bottom, which right now we're only looking at the past year of data, but we can easily go up here and, let's say we want to look at the past 3 years or so and bring all that data in. Now this kind of gives us a broader view of how have we really been trending versus plan over a longer period. So, maybe there have been a couple changes in the past year or so that might throw those numbers off a little bit, but if we look over that longer time period, we can really get a sense for how these things are moving. For example, over the past couple of years, we've been trending a few percentage points above what we've planned. So, that might be something that we want to look into going into the next year of reporting. And then, of course, we have a number of other visuals or screens available, potentially for other areas of the business that are interested in this same data, but don't necessarily need access to Anaplan. So I'll go back to the slides here. So, now we've gotten a chance to see how Anaplan, Azure, and Power BI can all fit together pretty well for a very robust system that covers everything from planning and budgeting in Anaplan to data storage and management within Azure, all the way to that reporting side in Power BI. So thanks again for joining. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.